Okay, this is next lesson for ninth grade. We're going to continue with completing the square. Okay, we have talked about solve by factoring, solve by using the quadratic formula. Now we're going to complete the square. Okay, so this is a very it's not that difficult. The only thing is that we need to be careful on how we complete the square. Okay, so let's do number one first. Okay, now one rule that we have to keep in mind, okay, when we do the complete the square is this one. Okay, it's gonna get clearer when we do the exercise, but we have to remember, okay, that we have a quadratic formula in this form. Okay, x squared plus bx plus c equals 0. Okay, remember that we have, this is what makes it a quadratic formula. Okay, we have a variable to the second power. We have one variable linear to the 1 power, and then we have a constant. And the addition of these three equals to 0. Okay? So, on the first one, we have x squared minus 10x plus 7. Okay, now, using the normal solutions that we already know for these equations, we would say, oh, okay, so we have to find a number that multiplied gives us 7 and that added gives us minus 10. Okay, technically there is no number, okay, because the only factors for 7 are 7 and 1, and no matter how we put it, 7 and 1 are not going to give us minus 10, either adding or subtracting them both. Okay, so we need to use the procedure to complete the square. Okay, so we take the first one, and we have x squared minus 10x plus 7 equals to 0. Okay, this is number one. Okay, so how do we complete the square? We're going to take this consonant and move it to the other side. So we're going to have x squared minus 10x, then we have a space, and then we have 7. Okay, negative, pass it to the other side, positive. Okay, now when we are looking to complete the square, this is where this formula kicks in. Okay, to find the other number that's going to help us with our completing the square, we need to take the middle number, divide it by 2, and then elevate it to the square. Okay, so that means that we're going to take minus 10, because remember this is letter B. Okay, the one that has the linear, okay, variable. Okay, so we take minus 10, okay, we add it, we take minus 10, okay, we divide it by 2, and we elevate it to the square. Okay, and remember, in an equation, we need to keep the balance. Okay, so this means that what I do on one side, I have to do it on the other. Okay, so we're going to have also minus 10 divided by 2 to the square. Okay, so let's put this into practice. Okay, so minus 10 divided by 2, 5. Okay, and 5 to the square, 25. Okay, so we have x squared minus 10x plus 25 equals 7. And we already know that this is 25, so plus 25. Okay, so this side, we already know that 7 plus 25 is going to be 32. Okay, and then we have x minus 10x, x squared, sorry, minus 10x plus 5 plus 25. That means that this factor here is a perfect square. Okay, because remember the factoring rules. We need a number that multiplied gives us plus 25. Okay, so it can be 5 times 5, or it can be minus 5 times minus 5. And that added or subtracted give us the middle number. So minus 5 minus 5 minus 10. Okay, so it gives us a perfect square. Okay, so how do we know that x minus 5 to the square is this? Let's solve it. Let me put it here right quickly so that we can just check. How do we know that this is a perfect square? Because x times x squared. X times minus 5x minus 5x. Minus 5 times x, minus 5x. And minus 5 times minus 5, plus 25. Okay, so x squared minus 10x plus 25. Okay, so if you notice, it's the same thing. Okay? Oh, sorry. This was positive here. I was looking at this one. Sorry. So this one was negative. This one is negative. Okay, so it's going to be 25 minus 7. Okay, and that is 18. I was looking at this one. Sorry, it's the other one on the top. Okay, so this one was positive. It comes to the other side. Negative, negative, and here. Okay. So we have that x minus 5, okay, to the square equals 18. Okay, so what we do, because remember, what we're looking for is to solve for x. So we need to apply square root on both sides so that this one is canceled. The square root is canceled with the square, okay, because it's the same thing. It's their opposite operations. Okay, so we have that x minus 5 is equal to square root of 18. And when we apply a square root, okay, we have two possible answers. We can have a positive answer and we can have a negative answer. And the reason is that whenever we have a number elevated to the second power, it's always going to be positive, because a positive number, okay, to the square is a positive number, and a negative number to the square, it's a positive number. Okay, so we have two possible answers. So we bring these two answers and we solve for x. One is positive, so that means that this one is positive 18, and the other one is negative square root of 18. Okay, and these are the two answers that we need to solve. Okay, so this means that x is equal to positive square root of 18 plus 5, and the other one is negative square root of 18 plus 5. Okay, so these are the two values of x that we are looking for. Okay, so if we take our calculators, just so that we don't make any mistakes, we would have square root of 18 plus 5, 9.24. Okay, so on this side is 9.24. Okay, and on the other side we have negative square root of 18 plus 5, 0.75. Okay, and these are the answers that we're looking for. Okay, these are the two values of x that are going to give the first one into into 0. Okay, so let's review. What were we doing? How do we complete the square? Okay, when we don't have a number that multiplied gives us the letter C and that added gives us letter B, that means that we need to complete the square. So we take out this number, we put it to the other side, and we convert what we have left of the equation, we convert it into a perfect square. Okay, how do we do that? Remember, we take the middle number, in this case 10, we divide it by 2, and we elevate it to the second power. Okay, that's the formula. That's here. Okay, that's what we have here. This is how we complete the square. Okay, the middle number divided by 2, elevated to the second power. Okay, so that's how we got this number 25. Okay, so that we can complete a perfect square, and then we can solve for the other number. And the two answers that we have are the answers for x. Okay, and remember, when we apply a square root, we have two possible answers, a positive answer and a negative answer. So that means that whenever we apply it, okay, we have to have those two values. Okay, here we don't have it because the square root is canceled with the square. Okay, so that's why we don't have two options. Okay, but we would have x minus 5, and we would have two options. Okay, the positive and the negative. Okay, That's how we solve here. One is for the positive, okay, square root of 18, and the other one is for the negative square root of 18. Okay? Let's do the next one. On the next one, it's a little different just because we need to apply one operation before. Okay, because when we're completing a square, you need to remember that this has to be x to the square and it has to be alone. Okay, a perfect square cannot be completed with a number on here. Okay, so what we need to do is first we're going to solve for that one. Plus 12x. Now it's minus 7. Okay, I was looking at this one. Okay, so what do we do first? We need to leave the 4 alone. Okay, so how do we do that? Okay, first we're going to move this one to the other side, right? Because we're going to complete the square. Okay, so we have 4x squared plus 12x, and then minus 7 passes to the other side, 7 positive. Okay? So the first thing we need to do is we're going to divide all of the factors by 4 so that we can leave this one alone. Okay? And remember, in an equation, we need to keep the balance. Okay? So that means that whatever we do on one side, we have to do it on the other side. Okay? So this one leaves us with x squared, okay? 12 divided by 4, 3x, then we have whatever, and then we have 7 over 4. Okay? And now that we have x squared alone, we can solve. Okay? So that means that we're going to take the middle number, letter B, and we're going to divide it by 2 and elevate it to the second power. Okay, so what we do here is, let me put it in another color. To complete the square, we put 3 over 2, and then we elevate this to the second power. Okay, and what we do on one side, we have to do it on the other side. Okay, and this happens always. Okay, what we do on one side, we need to do it on the other side. Okay, so here we're going to have x squared plus 3x, and then 3/2 to the square is the same thing as just doing it one by one. We would have 9 over 4. And then we have 7/4 plus, we already know the answer to this one, so 9/4. Okay? Now, if you remember, when we are adding fractions, okay, we just keep what? Okay, we keep the denominator and we just add the numerators. Okay, so if we have 7/4 and we have 9/4, since they share the same denominator, we just copy the denominator and we add the numerators. Okay, and now we have a completing the square, okay, which would be x to the square plus 3x plus 9/4. Okay, so when we have this one, okay, we have that the perfect square is x plus 3/2 to the square. Okay, and that's our completing the square. Now, can we check it? Let's do it. X plus 3/2 times x plus 3/2. Okay, let's check if these numbers actually give us the equation for the perfect square. Okay, so we have x squared plus 3/2x plus 3/2x plus 9/4. Okay, and remember 3/2 is the same as saying like 1.5, and if we have 1.5 plus 1.5, this one has x. Okay, so we have x squared plus 3, because 3/2 and 3/2 are 6/2, and 6 divided by 2 is 3, and then we have 9/4. Okay, so we have our perfect square. Okay, and if you notice, 16 divided by 4 is a whole number. Okay, so we have x plus 3/2 to the square equals to 4. Okay, now remember, we need to apply the square root so that we can get rid of this one, and we apply it on both sides. Okay, so we take the square root on both sides, and remember this one is going to become two answers, positive and negative. Okay, so the square root cancels with the square. Okay, and we have x plus 3/2 equals to plus minus square root of 4, 2. Okay, and remember, it could be plus 2 or it could be minus 2. Okay, so we divide these two answers and we find the values for x that we're looking for. Okay, so we have x plus 3/2 equals to positive 2, and we have x plus 3/2 equals to negative 2. Okay, so we solve 2 minus 3/2. Okay, and remember that 2 is 4/2, so 4/2 minus 3/2 is 1/2. Okay, so this is the first answer. Okay, and then we solve for the other side. Minus 2 minus 3/2. Okay, so this one would be a negative answer. And 2 is 4/2, so minus 4 minus 3, minus 7/2. And there, sirs and madams, we have our answers. Okay, so let's review what we did. Okay, remember that looking for that completing the square. Okay, the first thing is, since we had a number here, okay, we need to divide by that number so that we can leave x alone so that we can complete the square. Okay, so we divide every factor of the equation by 4. Okay, so that we can leave x alone. If we had an 8, we would divide by 8. If we have a 10, we'll divide by 10. Okay, so now that we have it alone, okay, 7/4 x squared plus 3x, then we complete the square. How do we complete the square? Where do we get this number? Okay, we get it by the formula. Okay, the formula of completing the square, which is the middle number divided by 2 elevated to the second power. Okay, so that's where we get 9/4. Okay, and remember, what we do on one side, we need to do it on the other. Okay, so if I'm adding 9/4 here, I need to add 9/4 here. Okay, and that's how we get our perfect square, and we get our answer. Okay, and once we have that, we bring it here, we cancel the square root with the second power, and whenever we apply, okay, remember a square root, we have two answers, a positive and a negative. Okay, so once we have this, which is alone, and this, which are two answers, okay, we split them. One with positive 2, one with negative 2. Okay, then we solve. We have 1/2, and then the other value is negative 7/2. Okay, so that's how we apply completing the square. Okay, so make sure to check the link under this video, okay, for more exercises. And if you have any questions, please let me know. Okay.